Well, welcome, friends, old and new. I usually like to start with a show of hands. How many of you are in this building for the first time? Welcome. I know you won't be strangers after tonight. We're going to put the hooks in you. So tonight, of course, this is a celebration of the history, legacies, and the future of Philadelphia's remarkable black entrepreneurs, 3 centuries of history. My name's Scott Stevenson. I'm the president and CEO of the Museum of the American Revolution. In just a few minutes, we're going to welcome up our curator of exhibitions, Matthew Skick, who was the genius behind pulling together our special exhibition, Black Founders, the Fortin Family of Philadelphia. And it was Matt's great work to go out, work through family genealogy tables and ancestry and find descendants of the Fortin family, introduce cousins from across the country who did not know one another, find these amazing treasures that are on display for the first time in a public setting here in the exhibition. And I've been grieving a little bit lately, realizing that, all good things eventually come to an end. And November 26th will be the last day that the exhibition will be on display here. So I hope you will help us get the word out to see these wonderful things while they're still here. Of course, there is a virtual version of that exhibition that's on the website, so you can, continue to visit it and explore things maybe you didn't have a chance to dig into when you've been here. And there will be some legacies from that exhibition that will live on in the museum. Now, Matt is also going to introduce our panel here in just a few moments, and that's moderated by our good friend Carla Trotman, who's the president and CEO of Electrosoft, and somehow also finds time to be involved with everything of worth in Philadelphia, including being a board member of the Museum of the American Revolution and a member of our Corporate Advisory Council, which is chaired by our good friend Jim Dever. Will you wave at us, Jim, from the Bank of America? And Baron Holland in the back, our good friends who are so involved with us as supporters for the museum. Carla served as one of the co-chairs for the exhibition committee, and you can see the names of some of these folks. This was a group co-chaired, our honorary co-chairs were Skip Gates and Danielle Allen, both Harvard professors who need no introduction. And we had some real powerhouse folks from the community who helped us to spread the word, make the connections, raise the money that was necessary to bring all of these objects, some of which have traveled all the way from the United Kingdom and across the United States to be here in the exhibition. And one more thing I'll say about Carla, not only is she a Philadelphia entrepreneur, she is also a Fortin family descendant. So she gets like double credit here tonight. Did you get your pin? Well, we're going to get you the pin. But first, I just want to give a few shout outs. Our presenting sponsors, of course, Bank of America, Comcast, NBC Universal, and the George C. and Esther Ann McFarland Foundation, and other funders and supporters that you see here on the screen. I mentioned that Baron and Jim are here tonight, and during this evening's reception, you'll see a table out here with some of their colleagues who have material for those of you who may be entrepreneurs, may be aspiring entrepreneurs, may know young people that you would like to encourage to be entrepreneurs, and they'd love to, sort of hook you up with some materials and introduce you to the good work that they do to try to build a stronger black business community here in Philadelphia and the region. Also with us tonight are some entrepreneurs from Comcast's RISE program. And will you just rise your hands, I guess? You don't have to physically rise. But anyway, thank you all for being here. This is a program that helps small businesses accelerate their growth to become thriving contributors to their local communities and economies, which is a big theme of tonight's program. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Comcast also, who sponsor our Veterans Day programming here at the museum. That includes a performance. This is a play that the museum commissioned that is a dramatic presentation of an elder James Fortin, reflecting late in his life about his experiences, youthful experiences during the Revolutionary War, and then reflecting on both the wonderful achievements and the setbacks and challenges that he and his community faced in the years leading up to his death in 1842. So this is actor Steve Crum, who portrays the elder James Forten. We are also going to premiere that same weekend a project we call the Pension Project. So this is a series of short films where we pair living veterans of American wars with narratives left by Revolutionary War veterans to sort of put them in dialogue with this, what's essentially the first oral history archive of an American conflict. And is Dr. Richardson's wife here tonight? She's here. All right. Well, Dr. Richardson, who, of course, is one of the last surviving Tuskegee Airmen from World War II era, is one of those three films. And so that alone is a great reason to be here to hear him reflecting on the experience of a black soldier from the Revolutionary War and making those connections across the centuries. So we're very excited about that. Now, if your business wants to explore sponsorship opportunities like this, it's just a great way to point out that there are opportunities to invest in the museum to help support our educational activities. We have a great corporate advisory council, again, chaired by Jim and Adam. Where are you? Adam Robinson in the back, who directs all of our corporate activities here, sponsorship opportunities. They'd be happy to talk to you about those opportunities. And then Mike Idris, where are you? The indomitable Michael Idris, who manages the museum's African American interpretive program here. And I just, please take a moment to talk to Michael. This exhibition, this program, is just a reflection on a commitment that goes back to the founding of this museum to try to change the nation's relationship with its revolutionary past, to understand that as a story that can be very diverse and inclusive and be a source of uniting us, actually finding common ground through our shared experiences as a nation. And Michael's a real great leader in that effort. So, and so finally, before we welcome Matt to the stage, Regina Hairston, who's president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Having formerly lived in Delaware, I think we should flip the second two. But anyway, who are our promotional partners for the evening. So Regina, please join us.
Good evening, everyone. It is such a pleasure and an honor to give remarks tonight for this conversation on Black entrepreneurship. Just a little bit about the African American Chamber of Commerce for Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New Jersey tonight. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary. We serve over 180,000 businesses. We're the voice and the advocate for those businesses. 80,000 businesses in New Jersey, 70,000 businesses here in Pennsylvania, and 10,000 businesses in Delaware. While I am the face of the African American Chamber of Commerce, and while I'm driving operations, I cannot do it alone. So I see some board members in the audience. So if they can just stand up to be recognized, please. Thank you. And I have my newest team member with me. I saw her somewhere, our new Director of Advancement and Corporate Partnerships, if she could just give a wave. Thank you. And so now I'll make my remarks. So good evening, and thank you for joining us in this hallowed space where history resonates with our footsteps. We stand within the American Revolution Museum, surrounded by narratives of freedom, struggle, and profound change. These stories, much like our own, are woven into the rich tapestry of our nation's identity. Tonight, we gather not just to appreciate history, but to learn from it and recognize a contemporary chapter that is being written in our community, the story depicted through the Forten Family exhibit. This exhibit is a reminder that the spirit of entrepreneurship, resilience, and relentless pursuit of dignity and economic freedom, the very virtues that fueled the revolution centuries ago, lives on within the African American community. It mirrors a journey, much like that of James Forten, taken by numerous Black entrepreneurs in our cities today. However, it also casts a light on the persistent challenges shadowing these endeavors. A recent study by the Pew Research Center laid bare an unsettling, yet not altogether unsurprising landscape faced by Black business owners in Philadelphia. It starkly outlined how our firms are overrepresented in sectors with low profitability and often underrepresented within circles of economic influence and affluence. Philadelphia boasts the second highest diverse population in the country, with African Americans representing 42% of the population, but having only 1.8 businesses per 1,000 Black residents. Black businesses face structural disparities, encounter disproportionate financial challenges, and often they strive without the cushion of generational wealth or the safety net of institutional support. Despite representing 25% of local businesses, African American firms are statistically shown to grapple with unequal access to credit, investment, and research-rich networks that are readily available to others. This imbalance is not just a hurdle for individual entrepreneurs, it is a collective economic shortcoming that we must acknowledge and rectify. However, let us also recognize that these statistics are not the full measure of our community spirit. These numbers speak truth, but not totality. They don't capture the grit, the innovation, and the unyielding commitment to community upliftment that thrives within our business landscape. The Fortin Family exhibit stands testament to these very traits: resilience, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to a vision. As the African American Chamber of Commerce, our mission extends beyond commerce. We are architects of community empowerment, advocates of economic equality, and we are support systems for the dreamers who dare to venture into entrepreneurship. Our role is to transform the statistics of today and the success stories of tomorrow, ensuring that the journey which James Fortin embarked upon continues to evolve from struggle to prosperity. Tonight, as we delve into our past through this exhibit, let's ignite discussions and foster collaboration to continue to shape a future where entrepreneurial spirit of the African American community is just not surviving, but it's thriving. Together, we can and will catalyze a new revolution, one of economic empowerment and equal opportunity worthy of the history that surrounds us in the very museum. And I also want to say, as I look around the room, I see partners such as Bank of America that is helping us change that narrative. I see Fulton Bank in the room as well. So we have great partners to create the ecosystem that we need for our Black business community to continue to grow and thrive. We will hear some great panelists that have great stories and success to tell as well. So now I bring to you Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Regina, and it's really a pleasure to address you all this evening. And I encourage you, if you haven't done so already or haven't been back time and time again, to go into Patriots Gallery and see the Black Founders exhibit. And I just wanted to provide a few brief historical remarks about the things that you'll see in the exhibit that really inspired an event like this tonight. And so just in a nutshell, James Fortin was born in this neighborhood in Philadelphia in 1766. And at the age of 9, he was there for the very first public reading of the Declaration of Independence on July 8th, 1776, in the yard of the Pennsylvania State House, what we call today Independence Hall. And those words that he heard, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, are words that he would continually reference later in life. Just a few years after hearing those words, he would go on and serve aboard a privateer ship operating out of Philadelphia during the Revolutionary War on behalf of the United States. He was just 14 years old when he did that, taking that risk of going to sea to fight for a new nation. And he became a prisoner of war, served 7 months on a British prison ship in New York Harbor. He walked all the way back to Philadelphia after surviving that experience, came back to his mother and his sister, and soon thereafter, he became an apprentice to the former employer of his father. His father had died in about 1773. This was a man named Robert Bridges, a white sailmaker in Philadelphia. And James Fortin quickly rose up in the ranks of that business, earning the trust of Robert Bridges, who employed an integrated workforce of about 30 men. And by the 1790s, James Fortin, in his late 20s, early 30s, becomes the foreman of Robert Bridges' shop, his right-hand man. And in 1798, when Robert Bridges was seeking to retire, the business is actually given to James Fortin. And Fortin leads that business from 1798 until his death in 1842. About 45 years of that business leadership, and Fortin rises quickly to become the wealthiest African-American person in Philadelphia and perhaps the entire United States in the early 19th century. But he's channeling that wealth, that leadership, his talents, his writing capabilities into the Black community here in Philadelphia. And he is involved in leadership of abolitionist societies. He is all about reform and civil rights. And this is something that his wife, Charlotte, their children, and their grandchildren are committed to. And that's that story of 3 generations of this one family that we share. It's a local story, it's a regional story, it's a national story. And I encourage you, as you go into the exhibit, to look for those surviving business records. There's only a handful that survive, that document the work that James Fortin did as a Black business owner in early 19th century Philadelphia. To get a sense of the work that he's doing, go into the recreation of his sail loft that we've created in the exhibit. That sail loft was originally located where I-95 is today, at the head of Lombard Street. But the panelists and moderator, Carla Trotman, this evening, and many of you in this very room are continuing on the long legacy of Black entrepreneurship here in Philadelphia that the Fortin family was very much a part of, but not alone in. The Fortin family, the Bogle family, the Bustle family, the Douglases, they're engaged in entrepreneurship, which took many forms, from women selling pepper pot soup in the markets in the streets of Philadelphia to Robert Bogle, who was a leader in the early days of the idea of catering events here in Philadelphia. Grace Bustle, who owned a millinery shop here in the city. There are long roots to Black entrepreneurship here in the city of Philadelphia, and that's something we celebrate tonight. And last I looked, it was a pitcher's duel in Arizona, so go Phils. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome Carla Trotman to the podium.
Just trying to make sure I'm at the right mic. I think after this, I'm going to switch over. So right now, I'm just going to have our panelists come up, and I'll just say a few words as they make their entry onto the stage. Again, my name is Carla Trotman, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees as well as the Corporate Advisory Council. And it's so interesting that Scott had mentioned how this museum is trying to change the relationship of history. This is oftentimes when people say, "You're a member of the Museum of the American Revolution," and they're like, "But you're Black." And I'm like, yes, I am. And that's again speaks to the fact that we do need to re-examine our relationship with history. And for me, it was I have 2 teenage boys, and when my youngest was a little younger, he was probably about 9, he was obsessed with Hamilton like every child was at that time. We came to the museum. He would lay in front of the screens upstairs and watch every vignette, every single vignette. And it was then that I learned how inclusive of a history this museum tells. And that is when I fell in love with the museum. And I had the fortune of sitting next to Adam at an event, and I said, "Oh, I love that museum. I take my son. He lays on the floor and watches these movies all the time." And I told him how I owned a business. He invited me to become a member of the Corporate Advisory Council. and I've been serving ever since. So thank you for that opportunity. When I was asked to be a co-chair of the exhibit, it took on a deeper meaning because I found out that my family was descendants of James Fortin, and I had no idea. It wasn't like, hey, I'm a James Fortin relative, I should co-chair. It happened the other way around. And but it was then that I decided to commit my company as a sponsor so that my children could see that their family business supported telling the story of their ancestors' family business. So with that intro, I would like to go and introduce our wonderful. I'm going to switch over. Hello? I'm just following instructions. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask that our panelists introduce themselves with this first question. So I'm going to start with, let's start with you, Nia. Back in the day, there weren't very many careers afforded to Black people. There also weren't very many resources, and businesses were created around meeting a need for the Black community. Can you tell us what caused you to start your business?
It's on, yeah. So I'll start it like this. When I'm by myself and I close my eyes, I'm a twin. I'm a dimple in a chin. I'm a room full of noise. I'm a gospel song. I'm a gong. I'm a leaf turning red. I'm a loaf of brown bread. I'm a whatever I want to be and anything I care to be. And when I open my eyes, what I care to be is me. When I was 7 years old, my mother had a theater ensemble company, and I watched her grow that ensemble and that company. And she told me when I was a child that I should have poems memorized. And it was at that moment of watching my mother own a company and a business that it also instilled in me the ability to look at my own vision and my own purpose. So what made me start is my mother, who reminded me that I could dream big. So when I was 7, I had a vision of having an organization that infused the arts with also helping people in relationships. So as time went on and things happened, I went to school, I danced, I did all that, but it was that vision that I kept with me as I started Creative Praxis, which is an art-based, healing-centered training organization that works with young people, that works with educators and community members for the purposes of liberation. So for me, I give shout out to my mother, who reminded me of listening to your purpose, listening to your potential, because I believe that it's in all of us, right? When we were young, we remember the thing that we wanted to do, the way that we wanted to give back to our community. And as we get older, we sometimes lose that. But if we go back and listen to our voices, it's there. Listen to the voice that was inside of you. And by the way, I'm Nia Eubanks Dixon, founder of Creative Praxis.
Thank you. Jason, same question for you.
Okay. I don't have a poem memorized, unfortunately, but my name's Jason Coles. I'm the founder and CEO of Katika. We are a Black business and community social network. So we're a platform that helps people connect to Black businesses, nonprofits, and public agencies, right? That information that's needed in our communities. And so back in 2018, when I started the company, at that time, the movie Black Panther came out. And so there was a great sense of just, Black pride and wanting to be empowered economically, and also a tie back to the motherland, Africa, right? And so that was one of the reasons that we named the company Katika, because it's a Swahili word that means inclusive. And that gets at the very essence of what a community is. And so at that time we saw a need, right? Most businesses, when you're creating a business, most entrepreneurs, when you're creating a business, you want to solve a problem, or you see that there's a need in the market. And so we saw that there weren't many, if any, black technology companies. And so we wanted to be one of the first apps that, as I said earlier, connects people to black-owned businesses.
Thank you. We're gonna, I have a special question for you too. I'm gonna skip down to Mr. Bradley because I have something else I want to ask the pair of you. So,
same
Mr.
question?
Bradley, the same question for you. You got a special question, yes.
So my name is Stephen Scott Bradley, and the reason why I became an entrepreneur and got started, I went through several corporate programs where I spent summers interning at insurance companies. And I had the opportunity of going to New York for a training session, and I met a young lady, and she's like, Steve, I told her I really wasn't in love with commercial insurance.
Really?
And she
You
said-
weren't in love with commercial
She told me,
insurance?
she's like, with your personality, you would be best having your own agency. So once that light went off, I was always engaged politically, civically, and I always enjoyed being my own boss. I was not good at following the rules. I learned the rules and I played by the rules, but deep down inside, I said one day I'm going to be my own boss and write my own checks. And because I had such passion for my community and being politically engaged, I put the dots together between commercial insurance and all those other areas such as politics and civic leadership. And I was always passionate about philanthropy. I mean, I just was fortunate to be part of WISE and organizations and benefited as a kid to seeing how, wealthy people that grew up in the same type of background that I shared their wealth once they got to a point in life. And that always inspired me and motivated me. So that's what made me pursue a career in insurance. And I had my own agency for 22 years. And just recently I got purchased. So I got a nice buyout. And now I've worked hard, reaped the rewards of working hard and grinding all those years. And now I get a check from somebody else that brought my book of business. So God is good.
Amen. Thank you. Kurt, here's your special question, okay? So Philadelphia was at the forefront of black entrepreneurship. We're talking before black towns like Rosewood and Tulsa, where Black Wall Street was. So they stand on the shoulders of Philadelphia. That being said, how does your business model, or how do you, connect to the black founders story, or black founders in general?
How you guys doing? My name is Chef Kurt Evans. I'm a chef, entrepreneur, chef, social entrepreneur in the city of Philadelphia. Grandma, forgive me for telling your business. I connect with the story on levels of, I want to say Robert Bogle, the Black Caterers, how I have a catering company. And what Robert Bogle did at a certain period of time, he got businesses, he got catering opportunities outside of the 7th Ward, and he employed people from the 7th Ward. He brought an economic opportunity back. Me, as a chef, social entrepreneur, 2017, I started this dinner series. I'm also connects with James Fortin in the abolitionist sense because I started a dinner series around mass incarceration called EMI Dinner Series. In mass incarceration, where we bring policymakers, lawmakers, city councilmen and women, judges, district attorney, a lot of people together, perpetrators of crime, victims of crime, and we would have dinner, ways to bring people to the table. And I say, sorry, Grandma, for telling your business. My reason I got into cooking, my grandmother used to, she had a number house, so she cooked, and she had a number house and she had games.
She was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, she was an entrepreneur. So as a kid,
other people with a number house. Some
Yeah.
people don't know what that is.
It's the lottery.
It's the lottery. It's the street. It's the street lottery. So my grandma did that, and she also she had card games. So I learned how to play poker when I was like 5, for pennies, and like would play with my grandfather and my grandmother. But she always cooked. So like cooking was just something where it was like my mother was a single mother. I gotta go stay with my grandma. My grandma is cooking because she has a card game tonight. So I would be in with cooking with her, and also my grandmother. I have like an extensively large cookbook collection. I never went to culinary school, but my grandmother researched a chef named Charlie Trotter out of Chicago. He owned one of the best restaurants for 20 years out of Chicago. He never went to culinary school. And she bought me some of his books, and like I still have those books from like 2000. So my grandma was like a really big portion of my life. And then also networking with I still translated to the pepper pot soup ladies because they were also street vendors. So selling platters out your house is the same thing. And I'm actually in the process of writing a cookbook called Platter Food. And it talks about how black people from beginning of time, revolutionary time, to civil rights until today, that's a financial tool for black people.
Thank you, Chef. Mr. Green, same question for you.
Wow, that's interesting question. I'm sure some of you who are wondering why is an elected official or recovering elected official on this panel. But I've been an entrepreneur. I've had a legal practice. My wife and I had a retail shoe store. That's also part of the reason why I don't have as much hair as I used to. But when I think about James Fortin and the connection between James Fortin and Robert Bridges, and we have so many black founders in our own lives that we don't think about. The chef talked about his grandmother. I think all of us have people that took the opportunity to start a business that may have got all the notoriety, but helped to take one generation to get to the next generation. So when I think about the legacy and the history of entrepreneurship, and I think about Robert Bridges, and I remember when I first came to the museum, it made me connect to my own personal background. My grandfather was able to purchase our family farm in 1943 outside of Greenville, North Carolina, in Pitt County, between Ayden and Grifton, of those of you. And we have a lot of North Carolinians in Philadelphia. But he purchased that farm because the gentleman across Highway 118, Oscar May, the May family, sold him that farm. And so you can only imagine what it would be like at that time in North Carolina for a black man to purchase a farm, and we've continued to operate that farm to this day. So when I think about the connection and the legacy between Robert Bridges and James Fortin, it made me think about Oscar May and Walter Green Sr. And so many of us have those same type of connections and family backgrounds and experiences of entrepreneurship where a grandmother, a great aunt, a great-great-grandfather started some type of business that provided some resources to give back to the community. Robert Bridges was very involved in helping James Fortin. James Fortin was very involved in the abolitionist community and using the resources from his business to do that. My grandfather pulled other black farmers together to purchase a bus to make it easier for black children to get an education in Pitt County. And so those are some of the connections that we all have. So I challenge you, when you come out of this exhibit and this panel, think about the founders you have in your own life, and then take that story and tell your children and your relatives about the revolutionaries that you have in your community and in your household.
So, Mr. Green, we're going to stick with you. I have another question that I want to follow up with, because I want to go into defining entrepreneurship. And you were talking about relatives. And I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother, is anyone familiar with North Hills, Pennsylvania? It's in the suburbs. So she had a store called Burton's in North Hills, and it was a sandwich shop and a store. And when I was little, my cousins would make a little bed for me, and I would lay in the sandwich shop, and then I would see all the people come in and out of this restaurant / store, but everyone knew who she was, and she was a pillar in that community, that black community. And then I was like obsessed with playing cashier, like in store, like, no, I'm the cashier, because you don't realize the things that you pick up. And when my parents started our family business, the company that I now run, I never wanted to work in the family business. We're programmed to go get good paying jobs. And that's what I did. I got a good paying job with benefits. And then I realized the power of legacy. And that was after getting married and having children, and I wanted something more than just a check. So with that, I asked the question, what was your entrepreneurial journey? You slid on past those businesses you started, but let's go back to them. Were you working in the craft? Were you making shoes? Were you selling shoes? What made you decide to branch into that? Or did you see a gap in the marketplace? Tell us about that?
So the shoe story is quite interesting. My wife is much smarter than me. She had worked at Ernst & Young and Price Waterhouse in healthcare IT consulting, traveled all over the country, traveled internationally, but she always had a fashion dynamic. If you come in our house, she sometimes will paint, make shoes, make clothes on our third floor. My third floor, we used to watch Eagles football. Now that's the Ladies Emporium because she was always very creative, and she's very creative.
Is it still open?
The shoe store is no longer open. But
No, the Ladies Emporium
Oh, it's
on the
still
third
open.
floor.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I watch football somewhere else in the house. But she always had this idea of creativity and entrepreneurship because my late father-in-law was one of the first African Americans to own a gas station in North Philadelphia because he worked for Cadillac and started a business. So she always had this entrepreneurial spirit, and that combined with some of my own history of entrepreneurship. So we pulled three other friends that she grew up with in North Philadelphia, pulled our resources together. Now, I was a banker, and so I was like, well, what do we know about selling shoes, especially lady shoes? So then I said, let me do a little research. And I saw how big the industry is. And then from there, I put together a business plan, put together a marketing plan, and she being a project manager put the whole project together from, okay, we're gonna use colors like Tiffany, blue and brown, and I'm learning all these different things about shoes and pulled our resources together to open a retail store. And I really got a perspective different than as a lender to businesses or an attorney representing businesses, the challenge in running a business day to day, especially a retail business. And the fact that, if someone breaks the front window of your store at 2 a.m. in the morning, the alarm goes off, you've got to go and clean it up. Or when you have a staff person that calls out, you have to be the person that fills in. So I learned all of those perspectives in reference to running a retail business. But what was really interesting about the business, it gave the opportunity for my wife, and my son was very young at that time, to be exposed to entrepreneurship. And the fact that we were able to pull our resources to start this business. And had a chance to be on the Steve Harvey show, won different competitions, and my wife called it Souls, a Shoe Experience. There's times where I'm walking through the city and they don't say, oh, Councilman in Green. They say, oh, you're the shoe guy. But those are the type of experiences I think are important for young people to learn at a young age, and for all of us. My family members, both my wife's side and my side, saw us start this business. And I think it gives that encouragement that you too can be an entrepreneur and take that leap of faith like Steve Bradley did when he started his business, or when the chef started his business, or even James Fortin, and thinking that, okay, Robert Bridges is now closing his business. Should I take the initiative to take over that business? And I think those are things that I learned from that experience. And I keep saying that you can be entrepreneurial, not just starting a business, but you can be entrepreneurial in a corporate environment. You can be entrepreneurial in the public sector, coming up with new ideas. That's also being entrepreneurial.
So this is not going to go to any person in particular, but I want to talk about when we start a business. It can be very capital intensive. And many companies, like I've been told, friends and family, just ask your friends and family. Well, people of color, we don't have a friends and family round. More than likely, we are friends and family for our friends and family. So when we do that, the seed money, how do we do that? Where does it come from? How did any of you, obtain the funds to start your business? Go ahead.
I'll go first. I was fortunate. I grew up in a Baptist church, and I was the chairman of the trustee board. So by being involved with the finances of the church, we was purchasing and building a new church. So I used the leverage being the chairman and the person controlling the finances and selecting the bank. When I started my insurance company, I said, hey, since we're doing a good job and you guys want this deal on this mortgage for this new church, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm getting ready to start a business. So I was able to leverage that relationship. So when I started my business, I had like a $200,000 line of credit unsecured. But again, I had a good reputation in the church. I was in my 30s, moving up to be the chairman. and I was business savvy enough to build that relationship and transfer it to my business. And I had coming out of the gate, I had a $200,000 unsecured line of credit. So that allowed me, after a short period of time, to hire employees, to be able to invest in building relationships, building my relationship. So that's relationship of growing up in a church and then leveraging that helped me set myself up to be an entrepreneur, where I didn't have the resources of family that I could have tapped into. And that worked out well for me.
You mentioned something very important about relationships, banking relationships. And we have Bank of America here, and they can definitely attest to how important banking relationships are. And I think back to when COVID hit Black businesses, and it hit our community very hard. Over 40% of Black businesses shuttered their doors during that time period. But those who had strong banking relationships and business networks that were able to share information and resources, that helped them to survive. And I feel blessed to still be alive as a business to this day. So, and I'm skipping around from our questioning because this was just on the tip of my mind. What was the key to your survival during that time? And did you get a PPP loan?
So no, I did not get a PPP loan. But for us, right when it was interesting, because when COVID had hit, we were about to do this huge training. And we had people fly down from Atlanta and Boston. And we had just started. So Creative Praxis started in 2018, but 2019 was like our big year. So 2020, we was like, yo, we ready. And then COVID hit, and we had to refund all those tickets. But right when that happened, one of the things that myself and our team was like, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And so the good thing for us is that prior to COVID, I was at my other job, I was the international director for youth programs. So I was running trainings nationally and internationally for over 7 years, doing really interactive sessions on trauma healing and de-escalation and conflict. Not only conflict that was happening here, but really big conflict that was happening abroad. So when COVID hit, I was like, oh, I know what to do. I know how to give trainings online. I could teach people about Zoom. And so we started training people on how do you make your Zoom sessions interactive? How do you make it culturally relevant? How do you get people up and moving in Zoom so that Zoom could be a fun learning space? We started doing, sessions with people on trauma and the impact that COVID would have. So for us, we went into it with the mind state of right when it happened, we were like, how do we be in the community and of the community? We started doing free story times for young people on Facebook because parents were like, what's happening? So for us, it was just like, pause, let's listen to what the people need, what the community needs, and then let's utilize the resources that we already have within our network to then create something that's special for the people, by the people. And to be honest, those relationships that we made during COVID, I think really helped us to grow wonderfully as we are still going through the pandemic.
I love that you are talking about being able to be agile and pivot during that time period. And I think of when I was reading James Fortin, and I learned about during that time period, there was a lot of anti-American sentiment overseas. And so they would say, don't buy those American sails, and would come and block the seaport so that ships could not come in. And basically it affected James Fortin's business. Same thing, War of 1812 affected his business. And having to be able to survive those different economic upturns, upheavals, was really important for him to continue his business until, what year was that, Matt? 1842. So that's after War of 1812. It was a long time. So this question was not previously given to you, but I am curious to know how, you've let us know, Nia, but how you've all pivoted during those economic times of uncertainty.
Sure, I'll go. I think you have to get creative, and I'll tie it back to when you talked about financing your company as an entrepreneur. So, as capital markets get tight, interest rates are going up, there are other opportunities out there, but you have to keep your ear to the ground, right? So just last week, we were fortunate enough to compete in a business pitch competition. We won $10,000. And so, thank you. So there's recognition that our demographic needs funds and capital. There are institutions that invest in that. There are accelerators that will essentially be like boot camps for your business and help you coach you up. There are CDFIs in the city, which are like community banks. So you don't necessarily have to go to your traditional route to financing. Sorry, Bank of America, but you have to really get creative and just keep, like I said, keep your ear to the ground, network in the city. We just had Met Week in the city about a week ago. That was a great opportunity to network and meet folks, whether it was in your industry or just people that are tapped into the everyday economy of Philadelphia. So, yeah, I would say just, be creative with looking for those different capital financing opportunities.
Anyone else?
Well, with me in the food industry, it was like really, I actually had a job. I was working in New York. I was the culinary director for a nonprofit teaching formerly incarcerated youth ages 18 to 25 culinary skills. I mean, kids that were coming directly out of Rikers, literally teaching them culinary skills and getting them jobs in restaurants. The New York restaurant scene took a really bad crash. So they gave me a severance package. I hopped on the Amtrak, came back home. But when I came back home, I still did my in-mass incarceration dinners. And I had to get really creative in doing it. I would go to my chef friends that had restaurants and yo, you're not doing nothing Wednesday. For you to make money, to give me a 3-course meal, what's your base cost for you to make money? Oh, they're $30, $40 a person. Cool, we sell tickets for $90. And we sell the tickets, people come pick their meal up, and we have a dinner discussion over Zoom. Because Zoom was big then, so we were having dinners and discussion. So Friends Restaurants was making money, and everything over top was donated. So that's the motto of the in-mass incarceration dinner is we raise money for nonprofits. My last iteration has been raising money for individuals. I know a lot of guys that I met over my experience of doing reentry work, a lot of guys that have been juvenile lifers that come home, and they're doing so much work in the community. It's an emotional attachment, emotional lift, but there's no financial attachment. And you don't have to really do this work. You're not in prison. You don't have to do this work anymore, but you still reach back. So we've been highlighting individuals and raising money, given directly into their hands. But we had to do that pivot of doing in-mass incarceration dinners. And I just was selling, I was having pop-ups. So it was oh, this restaurant, your friend's restaurants to be closed because they're not working at their full potential anymore. And pretty much most of the restaurants was doing takeout. So on a day that they're not doing anything, I come in, use my Instagram, and then sell food, and people come pick the food up. So it was pretty much like selling platters again. So.
Nia, I wanted to talk to you about this because it's near and dear to my heart. Today, Black women are the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs. Black women entrepreneurs have started companies at 4 times the overall population rate. Why do you think that is?
So I'm going to say this. This might be a lot. I think women have always been running things. Period, point blank. When I think of who was, I give a shout out to the grandmas and the moms who was entrepreneurs back in the day, and they never got credit. When you think about Black people in this country who were the scientists and the inventors and entrepreneurs who helped to build this country, but we don't get the credit. And so I think the same thing is true for women. I think women were writing speeches for presidents. I think women were running businesses with their husbands, but they weren't getting the credit. So I think what's happening now is that women are getting the credit. There's access to knowledge and resources, so more women are now I can go to college, I can own a business and be married and have a family. So the narrative is starting to change about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a Black woman, and what it means to be an entrepreneur. I think finally that there's now representation. I'm sitting up here, so hopefully another young, woman of color or just a woman in general is yo, she could do it, I could do it. So the more we see us represented, the more we know it's possible. And I know for myself, like being at a place where I could go to the Wharton School of Business, and I was the only woman there. I was definitely the only black woman that there was like they're offering these free classes, but we're there. And I'll say why we're there, because we've always been there. We've always been with our husbands, with our partners, learning, writing, scripting. I think now what's different is we have access to it, and we're actually now starting to get the credit. I don't have to go through my husband. I can say I am the founder of Creative Praxis.
Gentlemen, any of you want to touch that?
I mean, I think that's true. I mean, that's more
Amen.
than true.
And let's move on.
I mean, and let me give it.
Agreed.
When you think about, and I'm reflecting on some trips I took with my family when I was much younger, and going to Chicago, I had a chance to go to Johnson Publishing. And when you think about Johnson Publishing and the Ebony Jet Showcase, but you're also talking about the fashion that was part of that business. You go now to Fawn Weaver and Uncle Nearest. And that was her having the idea of we should take over this opportunity and creating this business, which is one of the largest growing and fastest growing spirits in the world. And she now just acquired from France a cognac brand. So we go from Eunice Johnson, and she was behind the scenes, behind her husband, from Johnson Publishing, all the way to Fawn Weaver, who she is out front and her husband is behind. So African American women have always been an equal partner in entrepreneurship and often taking the lead, but because of the nature of the society that we live in, did not get the credit. And so now finally that is occurring, and that's for the benefit of everyone, regardless of your ethnicity and background, because that's more entrepreneurs, more jobs being created. We talk about Philadelphia having this issue of poverty. Well, think about if we had Fawn Weavers who were in the 1940s and 50s being successful here in Philadelphia, we wouldn't be having that type of poverty issue, because we would have generations of Fawn Weavers doing that in the city of Philadelphia, creating more and more jobs. And that's why I've always been a strong proponent of entrepreneurship as an elected official or recovering elected official, because that helps tie into all the quality of life issues we need to address, because if we don't have the poverty rate, we are able to do so much more. So we've got to do more to help growing businesses, especially African American owned businesses by women of color.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to pause for a brief second to explain for those who may not know, because it took me a minute in my mind to put my mind around it. Like entrepreneurship, why are people pushing owning your own business? Like when I looked at my family business, I was like, that little old small business, you want me to take that over? You know, I want to make some money. Like I can't do that. And that was me, my honest truth. But business is where you can make money, good money, because you can't leave your job to your kids, but you can leave a business, which is an equity piece that peels off cash on an annual basis to your family. And I hired so many family members and so many people, and have given jobs to so many people of color and so many women, and I'm in that position to do that. The entrepreneurship is it gives you the opportunity to do something within your community in a different way, in a meaningful way, and for your family. And so that's why when so many people, for me, I had to internalize that and really think about, why is this such an important piece of how we can help bridge the economic wealth gap in the Black community? It's because Black businesses really do change the narrative. So just something to think about. Yeah. Mr. Bradley, I have a question for you. Did you know Black entrepreneurs when you were growing up? I know you hit on some parts of your story, but I wanted to know, what did your relationship or perception of Black business mean to you earlier in that period of your life?
I mean, as from a child, I just remember going to the barber shop, and his name was Mr. Negos, and he hired his son, he hired myself to just clean up, and he just had a personality that just made you, I mean, he set his own hours. I always admired that about him, but his favorite clients, he was there for, but everybody else. But things he did, he was very engaged in, like Halloween and those kind of activities being very popular. So you wanted to go to his barbershop. And that just always inspired me to see the leverage he had from loyal clients, and instead of buying a mansion, he put the money back in his community. And it just motivated me to, when I grow up, I want to be that kind of individual. And he mentioned Johnson publication. One of the highlights of my career, I had opportunity to meet Mr. Johnson, and I just can remember how he leveraged publication, politics. I mean, he was a power broker, you know, and those kind of individuals made an impression on me as a young man, and that's the kind of entrepreneur I wanted to be, and that motivated me to never want to work for other people, but to work for my clients and my community and build that legacy. I mean, you talk about wealth building, that's how you create wealth if we own our own, because we can forgive our family members. I mean, we could hold them to standards that other people can't. And you might have a record or you might have some blemishes against you, where I would still take a chance in bringing you into the firm and just let you know, hey, you're representing my brand, but I'm going to give you a shot. And when it doesn't work out, it's hard to fire family members, but they can't say you didn't give them a shot. You know, but the wealth building, that's what we need, entrepreneurs. Learn as much as you can learn from corporations and invest in your 401k. But when it's time, you need to go out and create that wealth for your family and next generations.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to business mission and development. And this is for anyone who'd care to answer. As an entrepreneur, what tangible tools helped in your success? So tools, passion, and financial success.
For me, I would say in my success, I actually got to work for somebody I would want to be like. So his name's Chef Ben Bynum, the Bynum Brothers. I used to work for the Bynum Brothers. That was the first job I actually held, the position chef at there, and it was funny because I was like, oh man, I was in between like these jobs, but I was working at like company jobs like Merck, the pharmaceutical company. I was like in those kitchens cooking, but I run into Chef Ben at Restaurant Depot one day because I'm getting stuff for catering. He's catering. And I'm like, hey, Chef Ben. I'm running up to him because I'm excited. And he's like, hey, Kurt. You know, I didn't really pay no attention at that moment. But I was like talking to him about like, hey, you know, if you ever guys need any help. And he was like, yeah, you know, we're looking to hire some people at South. So I came there for like a month. Then I became executive sous chef like pretty much like in another month. But it literally that day of like, he called me Kurt. And I was like, oh, so you knew who I was. So that stuck to the back of my head that he knew who I was. I was watching him. I was ripping off his pineapple upside down cake recipe for years. And because he was on like G. Garvey, he was on one of those cooking shows, and I seen it. So, but then as I got to work for the Bynum Brothers, I got to meet Rob Bynum, who's pretty much the operations. He does a lot of business, and I learned a lot from them two together as brothers. I remember one time we had an accident in the kitchen. I called Rob like 2 o'clock in the morning. He answered the phone as if it was 2 in the afternoon. Like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Everything's all right. And like literally he got it taken care of. So I learned about like, you know, being present, how to be with your employees, and just the history of being a chef. I give a lot of like my legacy to them as well, because I've seen other chefs and they give their like, oh, I work for this chef. And as a black chef, I do that a lot. Like I work for Chef Ben, I work for the Bynums. Like that's where, I don't care where else I work before that, I work for the Bynum Brothers, and I always give them as much praise as possible.
Anyone else?
I think one of the things that has helped me and I think is important is collaboration. What I believe is that everything that you need is already here, is already around you, it's already in your circle. So for me, it's like, how do I tap into the resources that are already in my community? I think one of the things that is sometimes of a detriment is when we believe that we don't have it already in our community. And a lot of times we already have it. Like if we look in this room, there's all the tools that we need right here to start. So for me, I think collaboration is key. Asking the people that you know already, if you know someone, for me it was like talking to teachers and talking to other people who are entrepreneurs and collaborating with them. I think the second thing for me is relationships, and making sure that you are in positive and good relationships with people. If people know you, they know your brand, they know your vision, I think that it just helps. It's helped secure contracts with Creative Praxis. People have come to a training, they love the training, but we also connect with them from people to people. So then they refer to other people because they're like, not only do we love the business and we love the training, but we honor and respect you as a person. And then to know that I'm also gonna be there for them outside of just money. Just like, yo, I see you and I'm here. I think, what's the rapper's name? Method Man. So Method Man was talking about business, and Method Man was like, yo, when you sit down with people, like, speak to them first as human beings, not what your degree is. Like, ask them about their kids, ask them where they're from, a little bit about themselves, so that people feel like, yo, you care about me. So I think relationships is key. And then the next one is just vision, like helping people to make sure that they understand your vision, right? And that they can buy into your vision and they believe in the brand, they believe in what you're doing. Because for me, it's like when I couldn't pay people, and I'm gonna keep it real, like when you're starting out, you can't always pay people, right? So it's who are the people that's gonna sit with you when you can't pay them, that's gonna cook and help you cook and stuff boxes and make calls. Like, it's those are the people who have a good relationship with you, but that also believe in your vision and that see the vision just beyond Nia, but can see it for the larger good of our community. And I know for me, I gotta give a shout out, because I had young people in the basement with me. I had my husband, my kids. We had family folk, elders. They was all with me as we started Creative Praxis. And that could not have happened without collaboration, relationship, and a strong vision.
What does growth and scale look like for your business? And how does one scale the type of business that you have? Like, what type of resources or what is needed in order to get to that next level?
Well, I'll jump in on this because I think if you listen to all of the panelists, you have to be a risk taker. Having someone or running a business of 10 employees is different than 100 or 1,500 or 10,000. But you have to continue to be a risk taker in order to scale your business. And I think anyone that's been an entrepreneur, you are someone who's fearless because you had the ability to say, I'm going to start this business no matter if it's a recession, a pandemic, or I'm a person of color, or I have all these other dynamics of saying you can't. But as an entrepreneur, you've already taken that step to say, yes, I can. So taking that next step to scale your business to a larger level is the same as taking the risk as starting a business to begin with. And I think all of the entrepreneurs, and even if you listen to the conversation about James Fortin and how he started his business, and even some of the challenges, as Carla, you talked about the War 1812 and some of the other dynamics, he continued to push forward. So in order to scale your business, and I'm thinking about my experiences as a banker and as a lawyer, you're using the relationships that people have talked about and leveraging those things, but also take that risk on yourself. You already were successful in starting your business, and for those who are thinking about starting a business, become an entrepreneur. Become an entrepreneur by taking that risk, because if Chef didn't go up to Chef Ben, who knows what would have happened? If Steve Bradley didn't decide to start his own insurance company, leaving Watling and Cooper, what would have happened? So I think it's taking that risk and believing in yourself, no matter if you have a small business or if you're trying to scale it to the next size, continuing to believe in yourself, even though you may get a no or another no or another no. That's just a yes that's waiting to happen.
You got it.
Okay, so one of the things in order to scale, one of the things that's really important is to have systems in place. So an example, I don't know if it's a good or bad example, but you've heard of the Oprah effect, where she features a product on her, or used to feature a product on her show, and then that business would get tons of orders. So if they didn't have the right systems in place, right, to be able to scale, they had a that one moonshot, but then they fell off that next week. So it's really important to have those systems in place so that it's scalable. You can replicate whatever you're doing in Philadelphia. You could take it to DC. You could take it to Chicago. And one of the ways to get those systems is experience, more specifically working for someone. So prior to starting my business, I actually worked in the mushroom industry, mushroom company, the safe ones, edible mushrooms.
They're all edible.
Right. I mean, they're all edible, but these were the fresh kind. So we were the exclusive dealer to Five Guys. So if anybody's ever had a hamburger with a mushroom one from Five Guys, it came from our company out in Kennett Square. But working for them for almost a decade, and it was a family-owned company, third generation, I was able to really have a hands-on, behind-the-scenes view of what it really took to run an operation, everything from sales to operations to marketing, every facet of the company. And then you translate that same system into your own business. Okay, what would that look like for my business, to have these different things set up? So once you do have those things, then it makes it much easier to scale your business.
Yeah, we're going through the same thing at my company. We've been growing steadily since I had taken over because my father was like, we make good money. I'm good here. And I'm like, no, but we can be here. And going from here to here is a whole different skill set. Okay, it's a whole different investment profile. It's about upgrading your systems to be able to handle like the Oprah effect. It's being able to bring in the right experts who actually know what they're talking about and not just say they know what to do. We brought it's a whole different way of thinking. And if you don't have a network of someone to run to help you, it's difficult. And so for us at Electrosoft, we created an advisory board. And that board has helped us see the bigger picture of, and on that board are people who have had successful exits from companies in similar industries or M&A attorneys, and they're able to really help us map out that next step, because we could take a big pile of money and make it very, very small very quickly if we don't know what we're doing and how to get there. So it's very scary, but it's also very exciting to see what that next step is going to be. Were you going to say something, Chef?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the systems part. A team, like I think a team is like, your infrastructure is very important. If you have a restaurant and you have a front house person, and this person has been with you for a long time, you have a chef, you can cut this person in on equity. So now you don't have this person chasing another job. Now they're invested in the company, and with that, it comes the systems, like the system, especially in food. Right now, I'm in the process of that with a new business that I'm starting, is getting everything centralized, as in we have a commissary, and then it pushes everything out to our smaller locations so that we're consistent in recipes, that it's nothing is, because one thing I learned as a chef, when I first got in kitchens, you go to the person that's training you, and every kitchen in the world, they say, this is how they do it, this is how I do it. So you got that person that's showing you how they do it, but it's not really how it's supposed to be done. So I think your systems, your infrastructure, your team, the right people that's telling people what to do. So I think that your team is very important.
Thank you for that. Our time is winding down. So what I'm going to do is everyone here is going to be at the reception afterwards. And so I invite you to mingle and have those conversations there. But I want to close out with asking one more question, if you don't mind. And I'll start with you, Mr. Bradley. What advice do you have for new entrepreneurs? Or you can answer, what does support and mentorship look like? Or something around that. Whatever you're comfortable with.
My advice would be mentoring and coaching. I mean, that's something I was very blessed with as a young man. I had a lot of good mentors. Wasn't all African American, wasn't all in the insurance industry, but because they nurture and put so much in me, once I developed some type of success, I poured it and it reciprocates. So if I would have just been selfish, I probably wouldn't have had the success I've had to this far. I mean, an example, I shared an office with somebody and his firm got brought out like 5 years ago, and I was really disappointed, like, wow, what is it about Bradley and Bradley that nobody wants to buy me? But it wasn't my season, and my deal ended up being sweeter than his deal. But again, it's the whole principle of nurturing and mentoring and putting it out and not being selfish. It comes back. And I'm just a big believer in coaching and mentoring. And you never know who the person's going to be that might be able to introduce you to the next person and next thing you know, somebody's offering to buy your company. You know, when I was discouraged for a period of time, but that's something I do a lot of coaching and mentoring the young people, and I just tell them that's just significant. If you want to know the success of Stephen Scott Bradley, it was mentoring and coaching from a young man to where I am now in the season of my life.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Green.
So just to follow up on what Steve said, because often when you think of mentorship, you think up and also down. But it's also the peer mentorship, because just because you have other people in the same industry that are doing the same business, you can also partner. That's another way you can grow, and we talked about scaling, that you can grow your business. And just because you have someone that's a competitor in the same space does not have to be antagonistic. Sometimes you can partner together on a project where you may not have all the resources, they may not have all the resources, but together you can work collaboratively. So when you're thinking about going forward, being a mentor not only to someone who has been much more successful, but also giving back to those who are trying to come up and follow in your footsteps, but also working with peers. And then the last piece I will say is that, entrepreneurship, yes, we've talked a lot about starting a business, but as I said before, we need to broaden the concept of entrepreneurship. You can be an entrepreneur as a teacher by coming up with a new idea on something you're going to do at that school. You can be an entrepreneur by someone that works in the public sector with some new innovation, new concept that you heard about in another city that you're going to bring back to Philadelphia. So I think entrepreneurship is a broad perspective. Yes, we often think about starting a business, but having a new idea and implementing that, because that may help someone in your community and in your world. So always think about entrepreneurship in a much broader capacity beyond just starting a business.
Well, I'm not going to beat beat me to the mentor punch, but I want to talk about being a mentee. So being a mentee, being a mentor is also a transfer of energy. I'm constantly calling you, I'm talking to you, but it's always, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? Also, what can you do for someone else when you're being a mentee? I think that's also important. Like you said, like giving back, what's given to you, give it to someone up or the person that's giving back to you. Sometimes call them, ask them how they are doing without asking for a favor. So that's something I've learned doing that. And also working in the space of abundance. I've worked in spaces where I work with a lot of friends, and I can be over here and things are happening for me, and my friends are like, wonder how this happened for me. But it's like, oh, this can happen for you too as well. So it's not, being the only one. So if you get opportunities, also spread those opportunities. So I think that's, yeah, that's it.
Great.
Advice. So I would say have persistence and patience. So persistence in the sense that, and I mean, James Fortin is just exemplary of it, just having that tenacious spirit to always keep going. I mean, running through a wall, just have the most insane, it really comes down to confidence. And confidence is created by having proven ability. And so as an entrepreneur, you should set yourself up with those base hits. Don't always go for the home run. Build that confidence up, and then go for that knockout. And then the patience part. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. You're not going to be successful overnight. I think a lot of, especially younger folks, they think they could, be Mark Zuckerberg and be a millionaire, in a couple of years coming out of school. But it really is a journey. And so just stay on the beaten path, and you'll be successful.
It's so funny. I was waiting for him to pass the mic. I was sitting there like, I was like, oh yeah, I got my own mic in my hand. So I think the first thing is learn. Learn your craft, right? And also learn the business side of it. Money. Learn marketing, promotion, planning, branding. Learn it. If there's a free class somewhere, go get that class. But learn it. Be excellent at your craft. Whatever you're interested in, be exquisite at it. Like, can't nobody take it away from you when you're dope at what you do. The second thing I would say is connection to relationships, connecting to the community. Just find ways to build authentic connection. And I think the final thing is just please take care of yourself. I think one thing we haven't talked about is that burnout is real. A lot of people who are entrepreneurs also suffer from heart attacks and strokes and hair loss, and they get divorced a lot. And there's a lot of things that come with being an entrepreneur because you're up late at night and you're doing things when everybody else is going to tell you, like, you should go to sleep. You're like, a couple more hours, right? Especially when you're starting. So I think having balance is key, making sure you prioritize your time and center your mental health and your well-being. Make sure you're drinking water and you're eating and you're exercising, because the vision can't happen if you're not whole.
And I'll end in saying that for me, that I tell everyone that what really changed for me when I decided I was going to take my family business over was going back to school to get my master's degree. And I'm not saying go get a master's degree, but what I am saying is education really helped me think differently and have different conversations and more meaningful conversations with our staff, because it was just on a different level. I hadn't thought about doing mergers and acquisitions until I took a mergers and acquisitions class. And I didn't think about a lot of things until I started reading the Harvard Business Review on a regular basis. So that reading and learning really helps pique that interest in those ideas and really help you think. And the other thing is that I wasn't just learning things that were future or currently, I was learning things from the past, like about James Fortin, which this exhibit is open until the end of next month, and I invite you all to continue to come and see it. It's an amazing exhibition. I'm just so happy that the museum was able to do that. Thank you to the staff and everyone who was a part of putting that together, and for their hearts of wanting to do an event like this tonight, and for bringing together this wonderful panel. So can we give our panel a round of applause? All right. I don't know if I'm the last voice you will hear. I am the last voice. So thank you so much for coming. Please join us out in the atrium. And if I don't get a chance to speak to you, have a great evening and safe travels home. Good night.